I'm Ryan Cantor, and we're talking about the Clemson spring game. The Tigers hosted their spring game on Saturday. And while we don't want to take too much from just a scrimmage, I do think we learned some things. So I'm going to be giving kind of my initial reaction to that. In the coming days, I'll have some videos with the guests where we'll break it down in more detail. Be sure to subscribe to this channel to make sure you don't miss those. I'd really appreciate it. So start off with some players who really stood out. I think you have to give a lot of credit to Dominic Thomas. He had 63 rushing yards, he had a touchdown, and he looked really good doing it. If he's Clemson's third running back, I think that running back room is fine. Shipley did not play. He had knee tendonitis. Maffa looked good. That's a strong running back room. Keith Adams Jr. also a real hammer in there. He exceeded expectations. Another guy was Banks Pope. He is a walk-on tight end, and he really stood out. He played really well. From the defense, I thought Barrett Carter was excellent, as he pretty much always is. But Peter Woods, boy, he really stood out. He had a sack, he had a tackle for loss. Coach Sweeney indicated that he is going to play early. After watching him, I almost think you have to find a way to get him on the field a lot, and that may mean you move him out to defensive end because you have Rook, you have Tyler Davis, both coming back. And you got to get Peter Woods on the field. He was awesome. So those were some of the big standouts. I thought Khalil Barnes, who had a pick six, also looked good. Bubba McAtee had 6 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and interception. He's a redshirt junior safety. He plays mostly special teams. I don't know if this particular performance is going to indicate that he's going to play a bigger role, but kudos to him for a really great game. I thought the tight ends were awesome. In addition to Banks Pope, who led all players with 67 receiving yards, Bringstool had 56, and he lost a big catch on a kind of like iffy sack call. I did notice he missed a block on a screenplay, and that was kind of his challenge last year is becoming a good blocker. So that's one play that I noticed where he missed the block. That's where he needs to improve. I think he's a great pass catcher, and luckily or fortunately, the Tigers weren't shying away from using the tight ends. Josh Sapp had 28 yards as well, and 3 of the top 4 receivers in the game were tight ends. So we've decried how they don't use the tight ends enough and they don't use the middle of the field enough. We're seeing that, so that was encouraging. On the flip side, I thought the quarterbacks kind of struggled. Didn't think they looked particularly good. Klubnik had under 200 yards with 2 picks, both of them tips, but the second one, Nate Wiggins, was more of a pass breakup. He really forced it in there. Not a perfect pass. Really wasn't much of a window. Chris Vizina really struggled. Was happy to hear that they plan to redshirt him, assuming everyone stays healthy, though. That's good to hear. I was a little confused as to why they brought in Paul Tyson if they weren't going to redshirt Vizina, as tight as they are on scholarships, to bring in another quarterback. They weren't going to put him either second or third on the depth chart. Paul Tyson did not play in the spring game, but Vizina now looking like he'll redshirt, that makes the take of Paul Tyson make a lot more sense. It also helps out, Clemson's missed out on some of the quarterback recruits that they wanted. Walker White going to Auburn, A.R. Nolan going to Ohio State. Well, if Vizina redshirts, you've sort of filled that void. So that could be a good thing there, but a little disappointing to see the quarterback struggle in general. Mickens is awesome. He had an interception on the play that Jamal Anderson, tipped. Mickens had 3 interceptions last year. He had 2 the year before. I think he might be the most underrated player on Clemson's defense, maybe the team. I mean, he's always where he needs to be. I think he is a player to watch out for. They got to find a way to get him on the field as much as possible. I think the secondary could really improve. That was one of the bright spots of this game. Wiggins looked really good. Makuba had an interception. Makuba also sort of got torched by Maffa when he went in for what should have been a tackle for loss, and Maffa just kind of lowered the shoulder and plowed through. But overall, I thought, Makuba is healthy and looks like he could really bounce back after a tough year last year. So excited about the secondary and their improvement. Wide receiver, I feel like this is the 3rd year in a row now where I'm kind of pessimistic about wide receiver. Now, they didn't have Bo Collins. They didn't have Adam Randall. So, maybe that's all this is. But, they leaned on the tight ends, which is great, but they leaned on the tight ends in large part because the wide receivers, aren't bringing a lot right now. Cole Turner only had 13 yards. He had 1 reception. He did get behind the safety and probably should have had a big play, but Cade Klubnik left the throw short. So not overly worried about Cole Turner, but in general, the wide receivers certainly didn't wow me. Noble Johnson, they said he's, quote, swimming. It's been a lot this spring. Physically, he's really mature. Perhaps he's one of these guys that Clemson seems like they always have where he comes on late in the year. So that's kind of a little area that's still of concern, at least for me. Tristan Lee was a guy that I said, keep an eye out for Tristan Lee. That's one guy I want to watch. I thought he did great. I thought he held up really well. Really looks like he should be ready to become the starting left tackle. I was really impressed with him. I only saw him get beat once. He got beat by Armand Mason. Learned that Armand Mason is the son of Anthony Mason, and his mom is twin sisters with Grady Jarrett's mom, which is like an absurd connection. And you may remember Anthony Mason. He was on the, I want to say the Hornets. He was on the Knicks. I had his basketball card from when I was a kid. This is so interesting and weird to see his son on our team now, but that was cool. I hadn't heard much at all about him until this game, but Coach Sweeney was really speaking very highly of him, called him freaky athletic, and said, this is the quote of the day: "If he'll just stay his butt in the crock pot and keep cooking, he's going to help us." That is a classic Dabo Sweeney quote there. But he did look good. I will give him credit there. And then last thing was the kicker. It seems like it's a competition between Robert Gunn III and Liam Boyd. Both looked good, made their kicks. So some ups, some downs. After kind of watching parts of it again a second time, a little bit more optimistic. Really want to see this offense be more explosive. I think that was the one thing that was a little disappointing. Offense still didn't look explosive. They didn't connect on downfield passes. I don't know if that's because it's the spring game, they're being conservative or whatnot. But that's the one thing that I think we didn't see that we wanted to see. But otherwise, a lot of positives. So please subscribe to this channel. We will have some guests to talk about this in more detail. Would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks.